Hey, how you doing? This is Wild Phil with Wild Phil's Osophy. Yeah, you heard that right. Wild Phil's Osophy. I had to fucking change the name. Some other jamoke cocksucker had a page already called Phil's Osophy, so it'll be easier for people to find my content. Anyways, it's a stereotypical gloomy Sunday afternoon in fucking March in Chicagoland. So I'm like, you know what? Why not fire up the hookah? Stogies are expensive, right? Just like gas. Fire up the cappuccino hookah and tell you some stories about the mafia for you mafia fans out there. So, and you guys know who I'm talking about. If you like Godfather, Goodfellas, Casino, The Irishman, The Sopranos, you're going to fucking love this. This is a two-part video. The first video I'm going to tell you about is the neighborhood that I grew up in and the activity that went on there. And the second video, I'm going to tell you a first-hand, face-to-face experience that I had with the mafia. And it was fucking scary. So let's get right to it. So I grew up in Northwest Chicago. I guess I looked up the correct name. You know, people say like Wicker Park or Lincoln Park or downtown Chicago. I guess the name of my neighborhood was Dunning or Brunswick. I don't know anybody I grew up with who fucking called it that. So, but anyways, it was Northwest Chicago, bordering Elmwood Park, River Grove, and like Franklin Park, Schiller Park. These were all different. This was like a huge area where all the old retired mob bosses would live. They would retire there, or they just grew up in that area. You know, it was a very, I don't know what to say, like it was a very white area. It was my neighborhood where I grew up in. I'll be honest, I consider myself half Italian because of the Italian influence that was in that fucking neighborhood. And so you know, and there was a lot of creepy things that I noticed. You know, it's funny because when I ask some of my old friends and classmates from my old neighborhood, like, did you know this was going on? Did you ever hear about this story? Half of them are like, what are you talking? That's fucking crazy. That didn't happen here. That's some fucking mob movie. And then the other half are like, yeah, I did know about that, but I'm not going to comment any further on it. So obviously they knew somebody. But anyways, that's how it was. You know, some crazy things that I remember is, you know, oh, and there was a suburb called Norwich, which I will tell you to this day, it's it's the town that I would love to live in, because you know how like in Edward Scissorhands, how there's that town that's like perfect, like all the colors, like all the houses are real bright, the grass is like perfectly green where it's like almost astroturf. That's how Norwich is, because it's all old school mafia guys. And if you don't fit in there, like if you don't have respect, or if you litter, or if you get into an argument in the street, they will beat the shit out of you, because that is like that's their haven, that's their like that's their retirement community. And it's weird too, because Norwich is like it's like a 2 mile radius suburb that's in the middle of Chicago. So it's like surrounded by Chicago. That's I don't know. It's the first time there. I don't know any other suburbs that are like that. But anyways, one of the creepy stories I remember was I would hang out in Norwich a lot because I went to their day camp as a kid, and I remember there being a house for sale, and the family bought it, and they were about to move in. You know, the for sale sign got off the lawn, and it was like, oh, you can move in by this date. And before they moved in, the house got fucking burnt to charcoal ash. It got burnt to the fucking ground. And I was like, yeah, it's like, I remember asking some friends, I'm like, what happened there? And sure enough, it was a black family trying to move into the mafia neighborhood. So that's the kind of shit that happened, you know. The other thing that was kind of interesting that I didn't know about until I read a book that I'm going to talk about in a little bit. So there was, I used to go to right across, I was like a mile away from this train station in River Grove. And my friend and I, we'd always go there to like, we'd find like a TV set in the garbage, so we'd put it on the fucking tracks for the train to hit, or we'd flatten pennies. And I remember there being a place called the Loon Cafe. You can Google this. I think it's still around, or maybe it got shut down permanently. I don't know, but I remember it like I could paint a picture of it. I just remember the logo. It's like a red ring that says Loon Cafe, and then it's like a creepy silhouette of like a hummingbird, what looks like a hummingbird with a long ass beak. And I remember when we were flattening pennies there, I remember seeing like all these fucking nice Cadillacs and just a loud ass party going on at that cafe all the time. And I remember it because we were trying to flatten pennies without getting in trouble by grown-ups, right? And one day they ran by us, and I'm like, oh shit, the grown-ups, we gotta run. And they were like, no, we want to flatten some pennies with you kids, you fucking crazy kids. And sure enough, those were the mob guys, because I read this book, The Loon Cafe. You know, between the South Side mob and the North Side mob, which was way in the suburbs, that was sort of like the middle point where all the mob bosses would meet, and they would like discuss like, what do we do with this territory? What's on the agenda? So they would all meet there. And sure enough, I mean, even when the trial started, the Family Secrets trial, they wired the place in order to hear all that shit going on. And they had, you know, like what you see in movies, a bunch of motherfuckers on roofs with zoomed in camera lenses and stuff. So anyways, those are the crazy things, some of the crazy things that I experienced. Now, here's where it gets really good. So what was going on in my neighborhood? Well, in Chicago, there's a few top Don mob bosses. I don't remember all of them. I do remember Joey the Clown Lombardo. There was Johnny DeFranzo, and then there was Frank Calabrese Sr. That's the one I know about the most, because he grew up a mile from my. Well, I don't think he grew up there, but his son, Frank Calabrese Jr., grew up a mile from my house, and he went to the same high school as me, Holy Cross High School. Holy Cross doesn't exist anymore because they like went out of business and they went co-ed with Mother Guerin, but we went to the same high school. And it's nice to know, because he talks about like some of the teachers he had, and he went to he was a football player. I was a football player there. So here's what happened with the Calabrese story, and it kind of revolves around the whole Family Secrets trial. For those of you who don't know, it was a trial in 2005 that concluded with a RICO Act that shut down the entire Chicago mob, or they say, because there's still some stuff going on. But this revolves around the Family Secrets trial. And the other thing that, for those of you who don't know, you mob fans out there who love Casino, you know, some people when they hear about Casino, they're like, I already saw Goodfellas. I don't need to see Goodfellas in Vegas. It's not really Goodfellas in Vegas. What it really is the Chicago mob made so much money from the Capone era, and then even moving on to the 50s, you know, the golden era of America, that they were like, we got all this fucking money. Where are we going to launder it? Where are we going to invest? And they're like, well, there's this fucking hole in the desert where we can make a shit ton of money. So they moved all their money to Vegas. And that's why if you rewatch Casino, I don't know if you remember those cut scenes where he's taking off a percentage of the money and then he's delivering it to the Midwest, those cut scenes where it's like they're in a dark room and there's this fat mob guy that has way too much makeup. He looks like he's fucking transitioning to some, you know, a different gender. Like, that's them delivering the fucking money to Chicago. That's where that money's going. And Frank Calabrese Sr. was in charge of that. He was in charge of that. Now, here's something that I also found interesting was it's kind of a rule of thumb that in New York, when you're in the mob, you're supposed to pass on that torch to your family members. You're like, you know, you're in my family. Why wouldn't you take care of the family business? Why wouldn't you move on? Kind of like how you see in Godfather, how Michael was not part of the Corleone mob, and he didn't want anything to do with it, but he got sucked in. They kept telling him, you got to help us out. You got to help us. And he got sucked in. In Chicago, I learned it was completely opposite. They were like, you know what? Make as much fucking money from the mafia, and so that you can make legit businesses, and so that your family doesn't have to go through this shit. So don't fucking pull them in. The other thing I also found interesting was when they show pictures of like old mafia guys in Chicago, all the mafia guys, they look like fucking angry union drunks. They look like, guys that drive fucking Ford pickups and they wear flannel because they did not want to be flashy. They invested all their money. They hid all their money. They did not want to be going out with nice fucking well, most of them, like the bosses that met at the Loon Cafe, they're another story. But most of the the enforcers and stuff, they didn't want to fucking get caught. So they gave the impression of a middle class, working class family. So Calabrese Sr. lived in Elmwood Park, a mile from my house, and what happened is he wanted to get Frankie Jr. in the fucking mob. And I remember reading this, and that's why, like, when I heard he went to my school, it sort of like touched me, certainly. But he was talking about how the first time that his dad um made him get involved in the mafia was Frank Jr. would usually walk to his football practice. He'd walk because Holy Cross was in Elmwood Park. It wasn't a long walk, so he'd always walk with his pads and his and all his football gear. And one day his dad was like, "Hey, you know what, son? I'll give you a ride. You make me proud. Come on, I'll give you a ride." He's like, "Dad, I could walk." He's like, "No, no, I'll give you a ride. Don't worry about it." So he picked up his son. He goes, "Hold on, I got to pick something up first." And they went to this random fucking garage where there was a hostage being held. What the fuck am I saying? And he threw his son into the garage and he goes, "Listen, that motherfucker, we're about to kill him off, and you're going to get in this mob whether you like it or not, because guess what? If you don't kill him first, he's going to kill you." And he slammed the door on him. And he made him kill this fucking hostage. And that's how Frank Jr. started getting into the mob. He started going out. First, obviously, you start out, delivering yellow envelopes with cash. Then you start being an enforcer and killing off people. And that's, there's a lot of details that are in the book. Frank Jr.'s actual book is called Operation Family Secrets, if you want to read that. And, that's how he started off. Down the line, here's what makes this story about my neighborhood so significant. I mean, there was so many cool, like I said, there was a story where he's running down a street and he drops a revolver in a sewer and they find it later on. That was a street that I used to walk every day to school on. The other crazy image that I have in my mind that I remember was there was a rat that the Calabrese crew was trying to kill off because he was I think he was either a dentist or some insurance agent that was like, "You know what, I'm not going to put up with your fucking shit. You think I'm scared of the mafia? You think I'm going to be muscled in? Fuck you guys. I'm going to rat you guys out." And as soon as he did that, he was going to go to trial, and the FBI put all this protection on him where they would follow this motherfucker everywhere he went. He from his job to his home. They were like, "Listen, for the next month, we don't want you to go anywhere other than from your job to your house. Nowhere else. Very little traveling, if any, so that we can follow you and protect you for this trial." So the Calabrese crew was like, "Man, how the fuck are we going to kill this guy off?" And I thought this was crazy. So in my neighborhood, close to my neighborhood, there's the Grand exit from the 294 onto Mannheim Avenue, and the exit is kind of it's a typical spiral, and right next to the exit is where people park their cars for O'Hare Airport. If if you're traveling to the airport and you're not getting dropped off, well, then you park your car there until you come back from your trip. So what they did is around that time, RC cars came out, remote control fucking cars. And they were like, "Listen, you know what we can do? We can get somebody to plant a fucking C4 under this rat's car. And then we put the signal in a parked car at the O'Hare Airport." Because some of you don't even remember this, but I had an RC car when I was a little kid, and you'd make it travel far distances, and eventually when it goes like past 50 yards, it loses the signal, so it just stops. It just fucking stops. So what they did is they had this RC fucking antenna on the car, so that right when it went off the exit, it would connect with the signal. and it would fucking blow him up. And man, they got a picture of it in there of a car. The car was unrecognizable. It looked like a steel tarantula because it was shredded. It blew the fucking guy to bits. And that was another cool thing. I was like, oh, I took that exit every day when I went to work and came home. So anyways, let's get to what happened to Frank Calabrese Jr., this guy that I grew up next to, right? Long story short, what happened with the family secrets trial is once Frank Jr. got into the Chicago mob because his dad made him, and once he got sucked in, the 80s came and he started doing a shitload of cocaine, and he got out of control. He was doing a lot of stupid, reckless stuff that could get you easily caught. So he was sort of getting frowned upon, even by his own dad. He's like, what the fuck are you doing? You're like, you're gonna get us caught. And he was getting caught for all this money. And a side thing that I'm gonna say that's gonna matter later on is Frank Sr. So the whole Calabrese family, and what a lot of mob families in that area, Elmwood Park and River Grove, if you ever go or visit there, what you'll notice is there's a shit ton of very like Xerox copy apartments. They're these beige 3-flat apartments. They all look exactly the same. They got like these peach bricks, then they got these stupid brown rock decoration on the side of the front, and it's 3 floors, and then the driveway is really fucking long, and the garage is in the back in the yard. There's a ton of these, and a lot of the mob guys own these apartments because they had the whole family living there. They had the seniors living in the basement because they didn't have to crawl up the stairs. Then they had they lived in the middle, and then like the youngest kids like Frank Jr. would live at the top. So he lived in one of these, and what Jr. found out was that Frank Sr. would bury a lot of his money. And when I say a lot, I mean he buried like $3 million upwards in his fucking backyard. So what ended up happening is, and I'm sorry, I'm so fucking out of it. I don't know if I'm getting these facts like chronologically right. I'm kind of giving you what I remember, but what ended up happening is Frank Jr., because of his coke problem, stole the money that was buried in his yard. He fucking stole them. He stole like a small amount, like $100,000 out of the $3 million. So Frank Sr. got fucking pissed, and Frank Jr., because of his cocaine paranoia, was like, "Oh, my dad's gonna fucking kill me. My dad's gonna kill me." And right at the same time, they got raided. They got fucking raided. This was like around 2000, almost 2000. The year 2000, and what happened is they all went to jail, like one by one. All these different mob guys, they went to jail. Now here's fucking Frank Jr. He goes to the same jail as his dad, and he's freaking out because not only does he like kind of not have cocaine, but he's like, now it's easier for me to get killed. He doesn't know who to trust in jail. The mob could pay off some fucking random skinhead or some Black Panther to shank him in the corner. So he doesn't know what to do. So Frank Jr. writes an anonymous letter to the FBI saying, "Listen, I got fucking proof for the entire Chicago mob. I can give you every single fucking thing." He basically somehow through a cocaine redemption, he was like, "I care about my family. I don't give a fuck about this organization. I don't give a fuck about making money. I just want my family to be okay, and I don't even care if I'm okay. But I need to get out of here for my family." And so he ratted out the whole mob. He wrote an anonymous letter. The FBI got him. They were like, "All right, we don't know why you're doing this because this is like incredibly dangerous for one fucking guy who's in the mob to rat out everybody. I mean, you're going to get fucking Joe Pesci'd like in Goodfellas. You know what I'm saying?" So he did this, and it gets into detail in the book, but basically they would speak in code in jail. They talked about how him and his dad would be like, "Oh, hey, did you hear about Sally's hot soup? It's really fucking good. But I don't like it when it's lukewarm." And that would mean like, I don't know, Sally would be like, Joey the Clown Lombardo, and hot soup would be like whether or not there's a lot of police after them or something, or it would be the opposite, So they recorded all these conversations. Sure enough, they get Frankie Jr. out of jail, put him in witness protection, and he ends up getting a house in Arizona. And this is the most savage shit that I heard about, and the reason why I'm doing this video. He gets a house in Arizona under witness protection. When he gets out of jail, he takes all the $3 million fucking dollars that were buried in the backyard. He gets all the fucking money. Waits in Arizona basically until all these old guys that got fucked with the family secrets trial, they either died or they ended up in jail for life, and everybody was kind of, like he was safe. So eventually when his dad died, he went back to Chicago. Now, why am I talking about all this? Because guess what? I was at work one day. I had a desk job, and I was really pissed because what happened is I'm a huge mob fan, and there was a Sopranos cast meet and greet signing at some sports con. I don't give a fuck about sports, so I didn't hear about it. I'm like, Jesus Christ, they got like this fucking washed up football player from the Bears from 30 years ago there. He can't even crawl to the fucking signing table without a cane and a wheelchair. Like they had all these old sports wash-ups, and then they had the Sopranos. I'm like, and I didn't hear about it. I was pissed. So I started Googling, like, is there any other meet and greets? And sure enough, Mafia tours, right? So what I found out is Frank Calabrese Jr. came back to Chicago. He's got a fucking restaurant in Chicago now, and now he does Mafia tours of all the places that are in the family secret, of everything he did in his life. I mean, and I went to go meet him, and I was shaking. I mean, this guy is built like a football player. I thought I was a fucking big ass football player. This guy is like, I'm 6'1". He was like 6'8". His hands were like Polish kielbasas. When he shook my hand, it was like if I shook my hand with one of my cats. It was fucking crazy. And he was the nicest guy in the world, Frank Jr., Frank Calabrese Jr. I can't say more good stuff about him. He's the nicest fucking person, best sense of humor, very welcoming, very respectful. And he takes you on a shuttle, and it's funny because there's all these guys that look like this. I mean, it's obvious I dressed up like this for the video, but all the guys that go on the tour are these wannabe soprano fucks from Chicago, and it's crazy because he's like, oh, hey, so I think right now it's called like Cellular One Field for the White Sox. And he's like, oh, before it was Cellular One Field, it was Comiskey Park. And, it used to be on this side of the street. But then because of zoning, they had to move it. Well, we had a fucking body right underneath the pitcher's mound. So we had to sort of interfere with the construction to get that body the fuck out of there. And it's just so cool, like going over you drive through every neighborhood, and he talks about every little fucking thing he did. It's cool as fuck. The one thing that made me laugh my ass off the most, if you're a local Chicagoan, you know about Connie's Pizza. Connie's Pizza is like a local frozen pizza chain. It's like a local Tombstone or Home Run Inn. And before, I'm trying to get this right, tell me if I'm wrong, but before they were a frozen pizza chain, they were just one location, and they were really good, but they couldn't expand because they were being extorted by the Calabreses. So it's so funny to me because we're driving around, and he's just like, all right, guys, for good karma, just on the side, if you're really hungry after this, go to Connie's. Let's just say I owe them, because they used to extort them. So I thought that was the funniest thing. Anyways, that's my story about my neighborhood and the Calabreses and the Family Secrets trial. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're interested in more, check it out, man. I mean, look up, go to your local library, take out Operation Family Secrets or just anything. There's another book called Family Secrets that was good as well. And just, it's cool reading for even if you're those old mob guys that don't know how to fucking read. Take your time. You'll enjoy it. Anyways, I hope you enjoy this story. Stay tuned for part 2 about my experience firsthand. And if you like this video, please subscribe. Please give me some comments. Peace be with you, my friends.